We're moving on to number 10 with TALON from Earth 3. Now unless you guys don't know, Earth 3 is the home to an evil Justice League known as the Crime Syndicate of America. On this world, Batman is actually Owlman, and he is also Thomas Wayne Jr., not Bruce Wayne. Now he takes on Dick Grayson just like his regular Earth counterpart, only this Richard Grayson takes on the much more sinister name of Talon. But Talon began a relationship with Duella Dent, who happened to be the daughter of the heroic Jokester on Earth 3. Yes, that is a good guy version of the Joker. He and Duella came to New Earth and joined the Teen Titans during the year after the Infinite Crisis, and together they actually stood against Black Adam during World War III. Number 9. The third Batman on New 52 Earth 2. The Earth 2 introduced in the New 52 is different from the original Earth 2 where the Golden Age characters reside. Instead, this Earth 2 sees Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman pass away in the first invasion of Earth by Steppenwolf and the forces of Apocalypse, who took over the world. Dick in this reality was married to Barbara Gordon, and they even shared a child together before she also passed away. Dick Grayson ended up training with Ted Grant and became this future's third Batman after Thomas Wayne took the mantle alongside his son, who acted as his Robin. He was a much more aggressive and darker version of Dick Grayson, which really worked well when he became the Dark Knight. Hey y'all! If you enjoying this video so far, be sure to whack that like button. It's all you gotta do to let us know we are doing a good job. Thanks so much, nerds. On to number 8, Injustice. Dick Grayson in the Injustice universe was a superhero and sidekick to Batman, just like the original. But Grayson still acted as Batman's original Robin, still led the Titans, and still struck out on his own as Nightwing. He was succeeded by Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and eventually Damian Wayne as Robin, but he formed a bond with Damian, and he is even seen as Damian's mentor. However, after Damian sides with Superman in Injustice, he accidentally causes the death of Nightwing when he throws his weapon at his head, causing Nightwing to stumble, fall, and land on a rock that breaks his neck. It's honestly quite the shocking turn of events. Now eventually Dick became the successor to Boston Brand as the second Deadman, giving him the ability to fight again from beyond the grave with the powers of flight, intangibility, invisibility, and possession. Number 7. DCEU Cyborg. Played excellently by Ray Fisher, the movie version of Cyborg seen in Justice League initially refused to join the team, though after his father was captured, he voluntarily pitches in and he successfully saves his father from the hands of Steppenwolf. When Superman returned, his offensive system kicked in and he attacked Superman, which triggered the Man of Steel to fight the Justice League, which was a really cool moment. Cyborg also played a super important role in the final act, where he began to separate the mother boxes that had formed the Unity. And of course, with the help of Superman, he succeeded, since no one in this universe can do anything without Henry Cavill, apparently. Thankfully, Cyborg has a substantially larger role in Zack Snyder's massive Justice League director's cut, which delves deeper into his backstory and his strained relationship with his father. I kind of hope we get to see Ray Fisher reprise the role at some point. Number 6. Flashpoint Cyborg. When Barry Allen Flash goes back in time to try and save his mom, he royally messes up the timeline, pretty much changing the whole DC universe. In this newly created timeline called Flashpoint, Cyborg is America's greatest hero in place of Superman, based out of Detroit. When the Amazons and the Atlanteans go to war with each other, Cyborg tries to gather a group of Earth's superhumans to help stop the conflict that has already ravaged half of Europe. But thanks to Thomas Wayne, this timeline's Batman, refusing to join up, nobody else wanted to join his group either. But then superstar Barry Allen shows up and convinces Wayne otherwise, and the three set off to gather together an army and save the day. Number 5. Superwoman. While Superwoman is technically an alternate version of Wonder Woman, originally she was actually the Lois Lane from Earth 3, who on this world was seemingly an Amazon, as she wielded the lasso of submission instead of truth, which is capable of forcing others to do her bidding and forcing them to love her. But this Superwoman had abilities that were more like a Kryptonian's. She was capable of not only everything Wonder Woman could do, but she could fire beams of red-hot energy from her eyes, and she could fly. She created an incredibly toxic love triangle between Ultraman and Owlman of the Crime Syndicate of America, and even had a child with Owlman, but promised to Ultraman that it was his. This was also while she was having another affair with Alexander Luthor. Damn girl, keep him pretty busy, huh? Yikes. Number 4. Raven from the Last 52 multiverse. The Batman who laughs comes from the dark multiverse, which is the flip side of the regular multiverse, composed of worlds where nightmares become real. All the worst case scenarios actually came to be on these worlds. During the final battle between the Batman who laughs and Wonder Woman, Laughs summons different heroes turned villains from across the dark multiverse to help him, and among the various characters is a version of the Teen Titans led by a version of Raven who gave in to her father Trigon, who corrupted both her and her Titans into twisted, powerful versions of themselves. Raven herself becomes a red-skinned, armor-clad demon. She actually looks kind of awesome, but she is undeniably evil and ultimately quite terrifying. Number 3. Furnace. Before the Martians became the Martians, they were an incredibly violent and powerful race called the Burning. The Guardians of the Universe experimented on the Burning and put genetic blocks in place to make them afraid of the fire they used as their most powerful weapon. Now fast forward, after the Justice League was trapped and taken down in Obsidian Age Atlantis, John Johns blamed himself for his friend's passing because his fear of fire completely overtook him. He recruits Scorch to help him overcome this fear, and he would use his telepathy to help her deal with her own problems. Unfortunately, in doing this, he also broke the genetic blocks, allowing John to become the incredibly dangerous Furnace, with all his original powers boosted in potential, especially his telepathy, plus an insane level of pyrokinesis. Number 2. Ultraman. In case you haven't figured out the theme of Earth 3, everyone here is just bad from birth. Ultraman was born on the dying Krypton to Jor-El, who was able to secure a life pod for his incredibly powerful son, who he saw as his best chance of revenge. While in his life pod, Kal-El was given the ideology of becoming the strongest possible being, eschewing all weakness in himself and in others. His rocket crash landed in Smallville, right through the home of the dysfunctional couple Johnny and Martha Kent, who he forced to be his parents until he was 7 years old, when he took their lives and burned their home to the ground. He took the name Ultraman, took over the Earth, and created the crime syndicate of America. Now, unlike Superman, Ultraman actually gets more powerful from kryptonite, and the sun is what makes him weaker, which is fine because he will literally just move the moon to block out the sun. And in at number 1 is Vampire Batman. In the Elseworlds Batman and Dracula trilogy, Batman goes up against vampires who have turned Gotham into their home, and then eventually Dracula himself. In the first novel, Red Rain, the hero wipes out the vampires and Dracula, although he is transformed into a vampire himself. Which means we get to see Batman take on crime using the powers of a vampire in the next novel, Bloodstorm. He does his bestest to resist the darker aspects of being a vampire, but that all goes kaput when Batman lashes out and drains the Joker's blood after the Joker de-lifed Catwoman. Batman has Alfred and Gordon stake him, putting Batman into a catatonic state, a state that he is revived from in Crimson Mist, the third novel, when criminals took over Gotham in his absence. But he is almost completely animalistic now thanks to the isolation. A bloodthirsty vampire Batman quickly wipes out most of his enemies in a very bloody form, drinking their blood in the process until he is finally put to rest by Alfred, Gordon, Two-Face, and Killer Croc, who all go with him to the grave. Number 10. Red Sun Superman. Instead of landing in America, Red Sun Superman landed in the Soviet Union, and that allowed the Soviets to weaponize him instead of allowing Clark Kent to live the normal life he traditionally has. He received severe training that not even the original Superman underwent, as Red Sun Superman was always meant to become a weapon. This allowed him to become quite strong as he paired his severe training with his new communist sense of duty. If the training he underwent wasn't enough to prove his power though, Superman advanced the Soviet Union to almost worldwide control without resorting to war, and he virtually eliminated poverty and disease. This powerful version of Superman is a much more skilled Superman, as that's what he was raised to be, but it was his ability to eventually realize the fault in his own actions and allow the world to become a utopia that kind of puts him a cut above. I don't want to give much of this story away, but if you haven't read it, man, the ending, it'll just kind of knock your socks off. You should definitely read it. Number 9. Ultraman. Who would have thought that a Superman who is just a giant man baby would be one of the more powerful versions of the character? Anyone who has read the Crime Syndicate or Forever Evil stories would probably know this. Ultraman is the Superman of Earth 3, where strength and power are held above everything else. Because of this, the moral ideals that normally hold back Superman are completely gone for Ultraman. Like all evil Superman, he does does not hold back at all. But unlike most other Supermen, Ultraman's relationship with Kryptonite is quite different. Instead of weakening the Kryptonian, Kryptonite gives him a crazy significant boost to his power when he crushes it up and inhales it. It's actually kind of terrifying, to be completely honest. Fortunately though, for the heroes of the world, he is depowered by the sun, which caused him to move the moon to block it out when he and the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime DC continuity. Number 8. Calvin Ellis. Instead of Kal-El landing on a farm in Kansas, a black Kryptonian named Calvin Ellis was sent to Earth to escape his planet's destruction. Nevertheless, he didn't grow up trying to fit into society, as he instead became very ambitious. What do I mean? Well, Calvin Ellis worked hard enough to eventually become the President of the United States, giving him a position that allowed him to better protect his world both politically and physically. He still carried his role of Superman and even became a multiversal hero when he teamed up with the other versions of the character during the Infinite Frontier era. Kind of like Red Sun Superman, Calvin Ellis gained political power as well as his own incredible abilities, not to mention that he reprogrammed the alien intelligence Brainiac to help him in his duties. He's also a talented boxer, so there's that. Number 7. Witch-marked Wonder Woman. Years ago, a 12-year-old Diana Prince came upon a ritual being performed at a crossroads in Themyscira to the goddess of magic and witches, Hecate, by her followers. Diana gets grabbed by the followers and Hecate brands her with a witch mark, and she vowed to Hippolyta that one day she would return to use her witch mark to take over the world. Once things start popping off in the 2018 Witching Hour crossover, Earth's magic is beginning to disappear and Hecate is obviously to blame. Hecate activates her witch mark, 5 women who have been branded, including Diana. The witch marked power Diana possesses could rip the world apart and tear holes in reality. It's honestly very insane, and it only gets crazier as she gains the power of the other witch-marked. Now I glossed over quite a bit for the sake of time, so I suggest you read the story. Number 6. DAWNBREAKER. Now this is like a mix of evil Green Lantern and evil Bruce Wayne. Technically, it's just Bruce Wayne, but after the passing of his parents that fateful night, the young Bruce Wayne comes into possession of a Green Lantern ring. We have seen Bruce Wayne wield a Green Lantern ring before, but this is the dark multiverse. Bruce has an unbelievably strong will, and using his powerful will, he is able to override the programming of the Lantern ring, allowing him to use it to take lives. He creates monstrously terrifying green-like constructs and uses them to not just ruthlessly battle criminals, but anyone who stands in his way, including James Gordon, other Green Lanterns, and the Guardians of the Universe. Number 5. Robin on regular Earth 2. Now, this Earth 2 is the one where all the Golden Age heroes of DC Comics are situated. In the Golden Age timeline, his history is the same as the original because technically he is the original. Right? Where things change is what would have been when he reached adulthood. In the diverging timeline of Earth 2, Dick Grayson actually remains the only Robin for his whole career. He grows up keeping the title and actually goes to school to become a lawyer. He takes up the Batman mantle once and comes into conflict with the Joker, but that makes him retire from the Batman name, and he continues on performing as the senior partner of the new dynamic duo, which consisted of himself as Robin and Bruce Wayne's daughter Helena as Huntress. And the two took part in the Battle of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where they unfortunately passed away. Number 4. Nightwing from the New Order. In the year 2028, all-out war between heroes and villains had broke out in the streets of Metropolis. There was countless deaths and destruction caused by the conflict for days, but after Batman passed away in the conflict, Nightwing activated a device in the war-torn streets of Metropolis that shut off or dampened the superpowers of most of the world, believing it was the best cause of action to save humanity from the dangers of superpowered population. Now after this, Dick began a relationship with Starfire from the Teen Titans, and together they had a son named Jake. As time went on, Starfire progressively fell out of love with Dick and resented his cause. One day, after Dick had chosen to lead the New Crusaders division to hunt metahumans, Starfire left Dick without saying a word, forcing him to raise their son alone in Wayne Manor. It turns out Jake is actually a metahuman with superpowers, and Nightwing now has to go against everything everything he previously stood for to save his son from the world that he actually created. Number 3. Injustice Cyborg. In this timeline, just like most of the other heroes, Cyborg had a very similar life to his main Earth counterpart. That is, up until Superman went bonkers. Once Superman established his regime, Cyborg kind of became Superman's Boy Scout. He was very dedicated to Superman, which is not what I would have expected, honestly. He was Superman's guy in the chair and helped him out quite a bit. Honestly, Cyborg was kind of really lame in this story. He gets defeated and incapacitated a lot. The best one though was when Batman revealed there had been a virus that he implanted in Cyborg when they first met, and just had it in his back pocket for whenever he would need it. Number 2. Murder Machine. Yes, there is a Batman Cyborg hybrid who is part of the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights, and yes, he is terrifyingly awesome. Murder Machine first appears in Dark Days the Casting in the Dark Multiverse Earth -44. On this world, this evil Batman Cyborg comes about after the passing of Alfred Pennyworth in the Batcave by a group of Batman's villains. As Bruce Wayne's father figure and closest friend, Bruce took this loss hard and he blamed himself. He asked Cyborg to make an Alfred Cyborg AI called Alfred Protocol in order to help Bruce like Alfred used to do when he was alive. Unfortunately, like most AI in fiction, it went mad with its directive of protecting Batman. It spread like a virus, took down all the villains, then all the heroes, and even took over Batman's body since it didn't believe that Batman could protect himself well enough. And Batman just didn't want to be separated from Alfred, so he was kinda cool with it too. And in at number 1 is Grid. As with a lot of these alternate Justice League variants, we gotta turn to Earth 3 for at least one. After the cyborg of Earth 3 gained his abilities, he realized that he could monitor all superhuman beings, but he didn't want to invade their privacy directly. So instead, he let secondary subsystems within his software do the privacy invading itself. He called this the Grid. Unfortunately though, this Grid managed to grow and learn from hackers and viruses throughout the world, so that it grew into a neural network that then developed into full consciousness with some help from Atomica, who used it against the Justice League and brought it with her to the crime syndicate of America. Grid now used Cyborg's parts and body to give itself its own body. Essentially, it took over the body of Cyborg, gaining all of his powers but with none of his humanity. It's very, very, very scary. Number 10. Deceased. After the Justice League defeated Darkseid, he somehow managed to discreetly abduct Cyborg and take him to his homeworld of Apocalypse. There, it was revealed that a half of the anti-life equation was contained inside Cyborg. Darkseid sought to merge the half of the equation inside Cyborg with the half he already possessed, but Desaad warned that combining the two halves inside Cyborg would likely kill him. But Darkseid don't care, so he tried to do it anyways, which resulted in a corrupted anti-life equation that became a techno-organic virus and infected Darkseid. Darkseid, upset, shot this infected Cyborg back to Earth, where he automatically connected to the World Wide Web, instantly infecting every single person who was using it with the virus, and chaos immediately erupted. While he kind of unintentionally put a zombie-like plague on the world, he did try to save it in the end. Keyword try. Number 9. Aquaborg. In Superman Batman issues 60 and 61, we're introduced to the Justice Titans, and in case it wasn't obvious, this is indeed a mashed together version of both the Justice League and the Teen Titans, which in my mind makes things kind of complicated since Cyborg is a main part of both after Flashpoint. Aquaborg himself seems to be a mix of Aquaman and Cyborg, as his name is Arthur Stone. We don't really see him do anything specifically worth mentioning other than fighting Batman and an amalgamated Doomsday and Deathstroke called Doomstroke. Number 8. Earth 3839. In this alternate universe appearing in Superman and Batman Generations 2, number 4, Cyborg, well, he's a bit of a chump. During a confrontation with Metallo, this Earth's Alexander Luthor, Cyborg gets completely immobilized by an EMP and had to be carried to safety by the other heroes, who included Jay West the Flash, Clark Wayne, a superpowered Nightwing, Janet Hall as Black Hawk, and Hal Jordan Green Lantern. Unfortunately, there isn't really much more to say about this one. He was kind of poo, but at least the story was cool. Number 7. Red Robin from Kingdom Come. In the Kingdom Come story, Superman and the other Justice League members are forced out of retirement to combat a new, dangerous generation of heroes. This future version of Richard Grayson actually became the first ever Red Robin in his middle age, but not as a sidekick to Batman. Instead, he was part of Superman's Justice League. He played a similar role to Batman as part of this league, being like a stealthy hand-to-hand combatant. This version of Grayson also has a daughter with Starfire from the Teen Titans named Mari Grayson, who goes by the hero name Nightstar. Kingdom Come is considered one of the best graphic novels of all time, and I'm glad Richard is a part of it, especially since it brought us the awesome Red Robin costume. Number 6. Cute Batman. I'm sorry I call them Cute Batman, but honestly, look at him, he's kind of adorable. On Earth 42, all the superheroes appear to be these little kid-like versions of their normal counterparts. Here, Dick Grayson has gone on to take up the Batman mantle after this world's Bruce Wayne was killed by a villain from an alternate reality called Super Doom. Now, Dick acquired the Multiversity Guidebook, which detailed DC's current 52 universes, and using it, he teamed up with various Batman and helped to bring the heroes of the multiverse together. All the little heroes of this world eventually discovered they were actually androids under the control of the Empty Hand in order to spy on the House of Heroes. Still adorable though. Just saying. Number 5. All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman is actually a 12-issue series that sets itself apart from the rest of the DC universe by sort of being a standalone story. At the beginning of the tale, Superman saves an exploration mission to the sun that was sabotaged by Lex Luthor. But because of his overexposure to the yellow sun, he ends up developing new abilities such as the power to harness his bioelectric aura and pushing his normal abilities to unimaginable levels. But it wasn't just his powers that got a boost. His intellect, creativity, imagination, and curiosity also got boosted up to the point that he started getting new skills and trying out new experiments, even some that would allow a successor for himself to be created. That's important because while his abilities and mental acuity had been boosted up and he even became immune to green kryptonite, the overexposure to the sun also meant that he was starting to slowly pass away as his cells became overloaded, causing this story to get really damn emotional. Number 4. Strange Visitor Superman. Okay, before we start, technically this Superman is not canon, but he is truly one of the more powerful versions of the character. In his story, Superman outlives everything in the universe, living for literally billions and billions of years. He lives so long and gets so powerful that he gains new abilities like being able to split himself into thousands of copies that allow the hero to do what he does best throughout the universe. He outlives all the gods, cosmic entities, mortals, angels, demons, and everything. He watches countless civilizations rise and fall and learns an insane amount of skills like telepathy. He absorbs ridiculous amounts of energy, learns magic and strange sciences through all his copies, and then reabsorbs them at the end of everything. He can fly faster than the entropic waves of the end of the universe and can even manipulate the fabric of reality through sheer strength. Number 3. Quantum Superman. Alan Adam is Captain Atom, or the Quantic Superman of Earth 4. He's basically a fusion of Dr. Manhattan and Superman. Sort of. Adam obtained his powers when he was present at an experimental uranium engine that was being tested, which then exploded, turning him into a disembodied mind with no natural division in his perception of time, meaning he perceives the past and the future as a single entity. He has some insane abilities. He has the ability to change his own size, levitate, and telekinetically restructure matter, which he used to construct himself a new physical body after his original body was destroyed. Using quantum superposition, he is able to generate copies of himself. He's able to perceive and manipulate reality on at least an 8th dimensional level, and also possesses quantum sense, making him capable of knowing potentially everything. He is also responsible for merging the minds of both Superman and Ultraman in order to operate the next spot on this list. Number 2. Cosmic Armor Superman. Cosmic Armor Superman is basically a thought robot that eventually became one of the strongest versions of Superman, even though it might be one of the weirdest ones of all time, and depending on your viewpoint, you may not count him as a version of Superman at all. I respect that viewpoint, but he always comes up when people talk about the strongest versions of Superman, so here he is. This creature is somewhat strange in the sense that it isn't quite human, but it isn't quite artificial as well. The thought robot was created so that Superman and the antimatter universe Ultraman together could battle something stronger than they could ever normally face on their own. After the battle was done, the thought robot eventually merged with the entire universe's consciousness, but let me just list the powers that he has here. His powers include reactive evolution, quantum manipulation, plot manipulation, energy manipulation, reality warping, space and time manipulation, immortality, matter manipulation, fourth wall awareness, and a bunch of powers that we can't even imagine. And number 1, Superman Prime. Superman Prime, or Superman 1 million, debuted during the DC 1 million event. This version of Superman stuck around Earth till the end of the 21st century, but after all of those he grew to love passed away, he handed off the Superman mantle to his successor and then went off into space from the 22nd century all the way to the 700th century. He gained godlike abilities and could even bestow his power on others, which he did when he returned to Earth and his descendants. But this guy also spent 15,000 years inside the sun and was drenched in its yellow radiation to become an even stronger version than he already was. He essentially became a god in his own right due to the fact that his exposure to the sun for thousands of years allowed him to increase his powers exponentially. Superman Prime became faster and stronger than any of his other versions, and his powers were increased to unthinkable levels.
At number 10, we have Johnny Quick of Earth 3. In this dimension, the Justice League exists as a legion of criminals called the Crime Syndicate, made up of evil versions of the heroes we're used to seeing in the Justice League. Flash's evil counterpart, Johnny Quick, has powers similar to Barry Allen and is credited with defeating the first iteration of the Doom Patrol alongside his girlfriend and partner in crime Atomica. He also traps the Justice League of Prime Earth in the Firestorm Matrix, which is a pretty impressive demonstration of power on its own, and it may suggest that he is more in tune with his abilities than Prime Earth's Flash, giving him a spot on this list without question. However, he is soon defeated by Captain Cold, who freezes one of his legs and shatters it before breaking his neck. And simply because Johnny Quick loses as badly and as quickly as he wins, he's held back a bit on this list. At number 9, we have Avery Ho from Prime Earth. Avery gains her powers in the Flash Volume 5 when the Speed Force goes out of whack and endows masses of regular people with super speed. Avery is a relatively new hero who has only been around since 2016, but we can be pretty confident that she'll only continue to grow in power and ability as time goes on. Partly through experience with the Speed Force and working alongside Wally West, but mainly because of a distinct ability she has that's unique to this variant in particular, in that she can siphon speed from other people, allowing her to increase her speed on command. So it's not hard to see how even if she's not at her height of power yet, she might soon reach a power level that might surpass even the most powerful variants on this list. At number 8 is Danica Williams from Earth 12. Also known as Beyond Flash, this version of the Flash exists in the 2040s alongside Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond. Danica is known to be one of the most powerful versions of the Flash, having the ability to communicate with past iterations of the Flash like Jay Garrick and Wally West. This helps her develop as a hero and gain enough foresight that she can avoid making some of the tougher mistakes that she would have made had she been all on her own. It also proves to be the case that variants from the future usually have some kind of advantage to their present day counterparts due to experience and futuristic technology. Personally, I just think there's something special about Earth 12 because Batman Beyond is also a really powerful Batman variant and he comes from Earth 12 as well. And Danica Williams rubs shoulders with him quite often, matching his power and intellect most of the time. At number 7, we have Bart Allen, aka Kid Flash, FKA Impulse. Hailing from New Earth, this teenage speedster is credited with being able to go faster than the speed of light, and those who understand the laws of physics would know how much of a game changer this is for Bart. It effectively gives him the power to transcend the laws of relativity. His abilities are so impressive, partly due to the fact that Bart originally exists in the 30th century before coming back to the present, and being as young as he is, he hasn't yet shown the full potential of his impressive speed. But once he matures into adulthood, we may end up witnessing the most powerful speedster that the world has ever seen. The only thing that sets him back on this list was his struggle with an illness that caused him to age pretty rapidly. He is able to get it under control, but he ages about 10 years in the time it'd take anyone else to age 2. So we hope this doesn't hinder him any further, because he's one of the most powerful Flashes out there and has tons of potential. At number 6, we have Reverse Flash. First appearing in the Flash 139 as far back as 1963, Eobard Thawne is an evil opposite to the Flash that gets his powers from the negative speed force. But don't let the name confuse you, the negative speed force doesn't negate anything. This inverted variant of the Flash can reach insane speeds and can even move through objects and walls, cause whirlwinds using his body, and most impressively of all, he can travel between dimensions at will. Not only this, but he has electrokinesis, which allows him to charge up electrical energy from his movement and fire blasts of negative speed force lightning at his victims. He can even use this power to steal years of life from his targets and age them to death. And if someone gets the better of him, Reverse Flash even has a healing factor that allows him to mend wounds and even regrow limbs.
Number 5. ROBOTMAN. This version of our favorite cybernetic hero comes from the Kingdom Come universe. In this storyline, Victor Stone actually becomes fully integrated with his robotics, losing his physical humanity in the process. But thanks to this being the future, technology is a little bit more advanced and he becomes made up of a liquid metal, all Terminator T-1000 style. Since he can shape his form in any way he wants, he chooses to look as human as possible, at least in shape. He's still all super shiny liquid metal, so it doesn't really work out fully, but Victor then joined the Superman's Justice League to combat the rogue metahumans, taking the name ROBOTMAN. Unfortunately though, he met his end in the Gulag with a large group of other heroes. Number 4. CYBORG 2.0. Okay, so this one involves time travel, which I hate, but alas, here we are. So basically, the Teen Titans end up traveling to the 31st century to help out the Legion of Superheroes, and on their way back, they end up 10 years in their future, and they encounter an alternate timeline version of themselves who have become a fascist crime-fighting force. The Titans came back and vowed to never become that future, so they split up to avoid it. Only, that is the exact thing that caused this future to occur in the first place. Victor was one of the first to turn to the dark side, and he created the Titans East, and also caused the Phantom limbs to appear. He also had this really cool slimmed down look. It was kind of awesome, but he was evil, so you can't really take a side. Sorry. Number 3. Superman. Some of you may not know, but the original Nightwing was actually a hero of Krypton. It's where the name originated, and Superman telling this story to a young Dick Grayson is what inspired him to take on the name Nightwing. But did you know Superman himself took the name? And even before Dick Grayson did it. Yes, Superman Kal-El has been Nightwing twice, in fact. In pre-Crisis, he was the first ever to be called Nightwing in 1963. Now, at this time, he actually had no powers, and he took on the name, while Jimmy Olsen took on the counterpart to this, the first Flamebird. The second time, Superman donned the Nightwing identity on a reformed Krypton in the post-Crisis world, alongside Lois Lane as Flamebird. These two heroes were both Kryptonian legends, and Superman wasn't the only Krypton native to take on the role over the years either. Number 2. Joker. On Earth 31, this version of Dick Grayson never actually became Nightwing. In fact, working under the much more strict, mean, and militaristic Bruce Wayne, Dick was even fired from being Robin for incompetence, presumably caused by not getting past the death of his parents. Years later, and this version of Grayson goes a little insane. He goes through an experimental procedure that makes him essentially immortal through cellular regeneration. regeneration powers, with the side effect of him being driven absolutely bonkers. With his abilities, he couldn't be killed by almost anything. He was attacked with acid, thermite, and C4, and even had his head taken off with no success. He became the second Joker after the original one and took out several retired superheroes, including the Creeper and the Guardian. After attempting to do the same to Catgirl, Batman finally took him down by throwing him into lava and extinguishing all of his cells simultaneously at once. May not be the most beloved Frank Miller story, but it's certainly, an interesting version of Joker. And in at number 1, finally, is Dr. Fate from Flashpoint. In Flashpoint, Dick Grayson was 1/3 of the family acrobatics team called the Flying Graysons that toured with Halley's circus. While touring in Poland, the circus was actually attacked by Amazon soldiers looking to steal Kent Nelson's helmet of fate, the most powerful magical artifact in the world, according to Black Alice. In their escape, Nelson was killed, but Grayson and a few survivors managed to keep the helmet in their possession. The rest of Halley's survivors were killed by the Amazons, leaving only Dick Grayson and the helmet on the run with the ghost of Deadman to protect him. He eventually decided to use the helmet of fate against the Amazons by becoming Dr. Fate, which granted him godlike arcane power, increasing his sorcery. It also grants him elemental control, including pyrokinesis, hydrokinesis, geokinesis, aerokinesis, cosmic awareness, and even precognition. Number 10, Mazaz. On Earth 3, things are kind of backwards. Power and strength reign supreme, and those who are superheroes and villains in the Prime Universe are supervillains and heroes respectively in Earth 3. Alexander Luthor, for example, was the most powerful superhero on Earth, going by the name Mazaz, which is Shazam backwards. Now, he's technically a good guy, but his power is what I find truly terrifying. Mazaz has the ability to absorb the powers of any superpowered being that he took the life of, through his lightning. Using this, he gained all the powers of Bizarro, including invulnerability, self-sustenance, arctic vision, flame breath, and kryptonite immunity. He got the powers of the Firestorm Matrix from Deathstorm, which are too many to list, the Speed Force abilities from Johnny Quick, and the powers of Hawkwing. While the characters he fought were arguably worse than him, no one from Earth 3 is really good, and he is absolutely terrifying, when he is powered up, of course. Number 9, Bump in the Night. For starters, DC's House of Horror is basically a collection of short stories featuring different characters. They are all equally interesting and horror themed. The Possession of Billy Batson and Last Laugh stories are particularly interesting, but for today's video, I think I want to talk about the very first one. Bump in the Night. This short story follows Martha Kent on the night Kal-El arrives on Earth. Jonathan Kent has gone out to explore what exactly caused a big bang and a trail of smoke on the Kent's farm, but he isn't coming back. As Martha worries about where her husband has gone to, she goes back inside the house, but Martha starts hearing bumping and thumping coming from upstairs in the house. Suddenly, a demonic humanoid child crashes through the ceiling and begins attacking her. She tries to run to the barn, but fiery beams of energy fire from the creature, blowing up the barn. She takes refuge in her truck only for the creature to land on the hood, shrieking. It throws the truck across the yard and Martha gets out wounded only for the truck to explode. The creature flies away with the symbol of an S emblazoned on his chest. If you are looking for comic book content, this is the place to find it, so hit us with a subscribe to stay inundated with tons of videos about all your favorite heroes. Thank you. Number 8, Speed Demon from the Amalgam Universe. The Amalgam Universe, where the worlds of Marvel and DC collide, is honestly an amazing place. We get all kinds of crazy mashups like Wolverine and Batman, but while that is incredibly awesome, the one I think may be better for this list would be Blaze Allen, the Speed Demon, or basically the Flash mashed together with Ghost Rider. Yes, it's as crazy as it sounds, and honestly, it's more totally awesome than it is scary, but Ghost Rider is already fast with his motorcycle, so imagine if he didn't even need that. The best part of this is that his cousin, Wally West, becomes another version of Speed Demon, and the two of them work together. It's not something that I thought I needed, but I absolutely did need it. Number 7, Electric Superman. During the 90s, to make Superman more interesting, I guess, DC decided that instead of his normal powers, they would give him Superman energy-based abilities. It instantly makes me wonder who would win in a fight between classic supes or with this guy. This Superman needed to wear a containment suit that helped him regulate his new powers. He could turn back into Clark Kent at will, but at the cost of losing the ability to actually use these new powers. This version of Superman also didn't have the traditional super strength that we'd expect. Instead, he could use energy fields to lift incredibly heavy objects, which is kind of the same as the regular Superman, but wait, there's also more. He could also split his body into two so that he could perform different tasks. He could teleport, manipulate energy, he had molecular control, and even more. But then, just as a little bit of icing on the cake, he's also immune to kryptonite attacks and red solar energy, which is a big boon for any alternate Superman. Number 6. Val-Zod. Val-Zod is sort of like the third Superman of Earth 2. He was also saved from Krypton's destruction, and after the passing of Kal-El during an invasion of Darkseid, it seemed that Kal came back stronger and unimpeded by morals, now serving Darkseid under the name Brutal. Turns out though that this was actually just a clone created by Darkseid, and he was eventually defeated by Val-Zod. That's probably largely to do with the fact that Val here is a man who values intelligence over strength. He has a wealth of knowledge gained through years of Kryptonian study and is possibly smarter than all humans. Val-Zod is stronger because he knows how to use the energy fields that are powered by the yellow sun. In that regard, he was powerful enough to defeat Brutal, who was said to be stronger than the original Superman himself.
At number 5 is Savitar from the Arrowverse. In the DCEU, Savitar is a futuristic version of Barry Allen who is jaded by a failure that turns his family and friends against him. So what does one do when they're cast out of society? Right, they decide to become a god. But joking aside, he does get his speeds to a point where he easily surpasses the abilities of his prime self and even starts to notice his body ripping apart due to such high speeds. This is why we see him in this insane armor. He designs this armor to keep himself safe at his unimaginable speeds. He then goes back in time and across dimensions to spread awareness of his godlike status before going back to modern day Prime Earth and facing himself as this newly improved yet fully evil variant. At number 4 is Black Flash. Black Flash is a manifestation of death that is fast enough to chase down any speedster and take them out for good. He can move faster than the speed of light and is immortal, putting him very high on the list. It's unclear why Black Flash is always trying to kill speedsters like Barry Allen and Wally West, but it's suggested that these speedsters are so fast that they can outrun time and therefore death. Unless, of course, death were to somehow, send a conduit after them that also uses the Speed Force, which is what the Black Flash essentially is. This variant first appears in the Flash Volume 2, issue 138 in 1998 and has been spotted in moments right before the deaths of Barry Allen and Johnny Quick. He has also chased after Wally West, but Wally was able to defeat this variant by running all the way to the end of time, destroying Black Flash because when there's no time, death has no meaning. But to think that these are the lengths Wally has to go to get rid of Black Flash just shows how insanely powerful this variant is. At number 3 is Wally West of Earth 22. Featured in the Kingdom Come storyline from the 90s, Wallace West is an amalgamation of all the former holders of the Flash mantle: Wally West, Barry Allen, and Jay Garrick. He's such a powerful version of the Flash that he is in constant motion, only appearing as a hazy blur most of the time. He then becomes an interdimensional being with a hyper-awareness of the relationship between dimensions and his influence on reality. In this way, he is pretty much a god and is known to have achieved more than any Flash from any other dimension. This could be due to his age as well, because Wallace West is an older iteration of the Flash, but it could also be chalked up to his near omniscience and omnipresence as a Flash variant. He isn't quite immortal like the Black Flash, but his mastery of interdimensional knowledge could be considered a more powerful trait than even immortality. In our number 2 spot is the Red Death. The Barry Allen from Earth 52 is a villainous combination of Batman and the Flash, and is known to be the most powerful version of the Flash in the whole multiverse, but I beg to differ, because I'm putting him at number 2. You'll see who goes ahead of him, and we'll see if you agree with me. First appearing in the Dark Knight's Metal comic book event in 2019, the Red Death is basically what you get when you give Batman super speed, super strength, and durability. This means that this variant can use the extreme intellect of Batman and apply it at extreme speeds, crafting bat gadgets faster than the speed of light and tracking down his enemies effortlessly in a split second. The way this villain is formed is that Batman is jaded by his experiences of loss getting emotionally exhausted by losing so many sidekicks and deciding that he needs to take matters into his own hands. This dark motivation also adds to the Red Death's power as he takes out his anger on the world with extreme speed and extreme power. At number 1 is Zoom. I'm putting Zoom at number 1. Zoom is a double variant of Flash, which is my way of saying that he's a variant of Reverse Flash, who is himself already a variant, so he's a double variant. But this version of Reverse Flash is even more powerful than the original, having an even more refined control over his time travel abilities. In the case of Zoom, he can speed up and slow down time around him without his frame of reference being affected. This means he can avoid the typical complications that other speedsters face, like intense friction and seeing and hearing at these intense speeds. Zoom's grim backstory also empowers his motivations, having lost both his parents at a young age to his father's violence as a notorious serial killer. Zoom goes right up to number 1 on the list because his grasp on his speed abilities is so impressive that he transcends into a new realm of power and becomes an adept time traveler as a result.